Welcome into 1043 The Fans Coffee Break. Yep, you're still stuck with me. It's Jake Shapiro. Rachel is out another day. He's DMAC, host of The Drive from 2 to 6 p.m. on 1043 The Fan. I'm Jake Shapiro from DenverFan.com. DMAC, Monday, let's talk about the exciting things in life. Thanksgiving, we talked a little bit about it last week. How did the whole experience go with the son's girlfriend coming over?
Oh, she is wonderful. We love her. She's fantastic. And I did a sneaky football thing. So my family really just doesn't care that much about watching football on Thanksgiving. They don't. I love it. We had the Bills playing early, and we had our lunch at noon. So here's what I did. I got the TV in one corner, all right? Then I got the computer in another corner. But Jake, what I really had that was super sneaky, I had the phone during dinner leaned up against the bowl for the mashed potatoes. And I was lucky enough to be at the head of the table. So nobody saw this little move. So nobody saw me actually watching the Bills game during the fourth quarter while eating my turkey. Pulled it off.
That's a pro dad move. Like, you see commercials, like that's the ideal commercial move of like, hey, you can get games on your phone now. Yep. And that's exactly what that plays out as. So props to you, DMAC. Yeah, we all ate Thanksgiving in front of the big gigantic TV, so that was not a problem over here.
Really?
Yeah.
You eat in front of the big TV?
Yeah, really? Well, there was a lot of family friends, extended family here at this house, so there was no one table that could fit everybody. So it was kind of your choice if you wanted to go eat at the table, eat at the auxiliary table, or eat on the couch in front of the TV. So we had kind of scattered everywhere.
And then you forced everybody to watch soccer.
It wasn't. I tweeted at you that we were watching soccer, but I did not tweet at you that I changed the channel. That was actually the head of the household, my future father-in-law, that changed the channel to the World Cup. So
yeah, because he's trying to buddy up to you for some ridiculous reason, and I would just leave well enough alone. You're going to be around this family harassing them. You're growing that silly mustache again. I mean, just move on. Just move on. And perhaps we should move on to the Broncos. But, we can talk about more Thanksgiving stuff.
Well, we'll move on to the Broncos, but I will say he's a huge sports fan, hence the Red Sox, but he's actually a huge soccer fan as well. So I'm not completely out of place, Dean.
All right. You're killing me here. What does that even mean? What does a huge soccer fan even mean?
He wakes up every Saturday, Sunday morning, depending on when Liverpool is playing, and watches the games.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You got me. That's a huge soccer fan.
And he goes to New Mexico United games down here. So, yeah, he's a soccer fan.
You got me. Yeah, you had me at waking up.
Yeah. Waking up is always the sign of true sports fandom. And I think a lot of people woke up from their food comas on Sunday to watch the Denver Broncos lose to the Carolina Panthers. Not a close game. 23-10 was the final score, but not a close game by any means. DMAC, I just read a Bill Barnwell piece on ESPN that suggested that the Broncos may have hit rock bottom.
No.
Right, and we talked about this on the postgame show. We think this can get way worse.
Of course it can get way worse. And we saw harbingers of things to come in terms of way worse. Jake, way worse is when the guys just stop trying. And I think we saw definitive elements of that. The only thing that's kept the Broncos in games is that the defense has seemed to care. What happens when the defense doesn't really care anymore? And I mean, we're going in that direction. This whole Mike Purcell was just strongly encouraging Russell Wilson is the biggest crap I've ever seen. You got to watch the body language. Purcell takes a dumb penalty out of frustrations, par for the course for special teams, because Dwayne Stoops really has never got that unit in line. He's walking off, and clearly Russell is saying something. There's something that gets Purcell's attention so that he goes off to the right. He's walking back to the sideline. He hears, he hears something and then snaps back at Russell Wilson. Now, whatever the specifics were, you don't need to be a genius to identify that body language. Purcell made a mistake, and Wilson was saying something to him about it, and Purcell snapped back at him along the lines of, well, you get going, or, I've heard enough of your crap or whatever. So were they both, or was he frustrated? Yeah, of course he was frustrated. He made a terrible mistake. You got to have a cooler head than that on, field goal block. I mean, what are we talking about here? So he screwed up, but he didn't want to hear it from Russ. And that's the problem. You've heard enough. I've heard enough from you, dude. I get it. You go do your job. I don't need to hear anything more from you. So while they're both kind of covering it with the I just said let's F and go, that sort of thing, you're missing the deeper picture here. It's I can't take it anymore from you because you're not doing your job. So yeah, I screwed up. I just don't need to hear it from you. That's what was going on. And that's an indication that this defense is about to emotionally break. And when it doesn't take the whole team, Jake, to break, to drop lower. You just need one or two guys, Jake, to, sort of not give it their all for things to fall apart. Josh Jacobs ran for an 86-yard touchdown in overtime, not because the whole team made a mistake. It was like two guys made a mistake at the same time, and there you go. Oh, no, Jake. This can get worse, and likely it will.
Yeah, defense, in my experience, has either always been about skill and effort. It's a combination of both things. And when that effort lacks, things are going to start falling apart. We actually have the clip of Mike Purcell. I want to go ahead and show that to the viewers.
Know if something was said, if Russell Wilson says something as he's coming off the field here, or Purcell is just going over to him and saying, hey, man, I care about this.
It's like, okay, all right, okay. Because it's not like they hate each other. I'm not going to say that. But there's this ridiculous frustration. Like, I don't need to hear this from you right now. I know I screwed up. I know we're struggling. I'm pissed off. You saw what Nathaniel Hackett did in that clip when Purcell walked by. What did Hackett do when Purcell walked by?
He acted like he was not there.
You just do nothing. You got to sometimes just let guys get it out of their system, vent, go address it later on the sideline. It wasn't good what Purcell did in no fashion, but he wasn't ready for a pep talk either. And it's just enough. And that video clearly shows it. He's mad. He's grumbling to himself. He hears something from Russ. If he didn't hear anything from Russ, do you think he was just going to go? I mean, it's ridiculous. He wouldn't have jerked his head like that. He wouldn't have turned like that if he didn't hear something. Only a complete lunatic would just for no reason, take a direct right, a 90-degree turn and stab at a dude. And Purcell's not a lunatic. He's a good young man from Highlands Ranch.
Well, I think what maybe was said was like some combination of Russell Wilson just being encouraging, like, let's go, we need to go. And that's what he did say. And that can even snap you at that point when the frustrations boil over. What I find funny is Russell Wilson, I completely believe him based on what I see in the clip too, is he said, what I told Mike Purcell after he outburst on me was, I agree. Which is just a really funny way to diffuse a situation when a 300+ pound man is yelling at you. Just go, I agree.
And sometimes, Jake, when you're in that mood, your sentences don't make sense. That is the genesis of Kirk Cousins. You like that? You like that? It's not really grammatically a sentence right there, but you're just filled with emotion. It's like when you look at the Peyton Manning Jeff Saturday clip. Neither one of those guys is really making sense grammatically with what they're saying. So essentially, if Purcell's like, he hears something, you go, you go, F-bomb, you go. I mean, it's, it could be a you go, it could be a car commercial. So you can interpret it like he was just encouraging us. He was just frustrated, which he was. But to think that there wasn't deeper meaning to it is just incredibly naive.
I want to read into that deeper meaning in a second, but I do want to play a clip of Justin Simmons breaking down what he thinks went down between those two and what it means overall for the team.
No, I think the chemistry with this group is still great. And I think like when you just put as much as you do into it week in and week out, you don't get the results, like it could be frustrating. So as frustrated as everyone is watching, you can only imagine how frustrated guys are when they're the ones out there, trying to put in the work and find ways to win football games. And some of that spills over. And I had a chance to talk to Mike. Haven't had a chance to talk to Russ yet, but those types of things happen in the game, and I haven't seen it. I don't know exactly what's going on. I just heard about it, but Mike means well. Obviously, Russ is an amazing player, an amazing guy, and things just aren't clicking. For us as a team, not just on one side of the ball. And so, we're talking about playing the game, and so those things are gonna happen, and I'm not worried at all about the team, the culture, in terms of maybe like a little outburst. Like I said, I didn't see it, but those types of things happen.
Well, Jake, he's sort of right and sort of wrong. Sure, they can happen. The Peyton Manning Jeff Saturday clip that we just talked about, that did happen. But Jake, it doesn't happen that much. It doesn't happen on the regular. And it very, very rarely happens between the offense and the defense. Very rarely. In this particular case, special teams and the quarterback. Jake, it's rare. In fact, I would challenge people out there to find other examples where it is a defensive player snapping at the franchise quarterback. And you can talk about different roles. Jeff Saturday at least was a established star on the Colts. He was Peyton Manning's guy. What is the relationship between Mike Purcell and Russell Wilson? And this does go back, Jake, to when the defense was stopping the offense in training camp 12 straight times in the red zone. Russell Wilson gathered the offense around rah-rah, and the defense just flat out went there and clowned them, to the degree that Russell Wilson and Justin Simmons were having some interesting words in the middle of the practice field. So, listen, everybody likes Russell Wilson, the person. Everybody recognizes he's a good guy. But there's a bottom line with all of this, Jake, and it's about expectations of performance. And they are so woefully below the expectation. It's ridiculous, and it is frustrating.
To me, this actually isn't that surprising at all, that there's some miscommunication and some frustrations between defense and offense, given what we know about Russell Wilson's past. The Legion of Boom guys in Seattle have been very vocal post-Russell Wilson breakup about their feelings about Russell Wilson. So I think we saw a little bit of a hint of what we might be hearing from past Broncos in future years from this year's team about what it was like to work with Russell Wilson. We just saw it in live time. So I am not surprised that there is maybe some bursting at the seams between the offense and the defense, and that offense is led by Russell Wilson. One of the issues for this offense, though, has been the running game. We saw Latavius Murray in this game have a 52-yard rushing play. But aside from that, it was very, very quiet. The Broncos offense looks stagnant. Melvin Gordon is now gone. Javonte Williams is still on the IR. What are we seeing from the running backs? Is there a guy in this room that can be a productive part of this team next year? Or do the Broncos really need to attack the draft and maybe even sign someone in free agency?
Well, probably all. You're probably going to have, Mike Boone's coming back too. And I think, in fact, he may be back against the Ravens. So may KJ Hamler, and so maybe Jerry Jeudy. I am seeing apologists out there, and they are out there, the Broncos apologists, and they're just citing, it's the injuries, it's not really Russ. It's the coaching, it's not really Russ. Jake, this is all window dressing if you can't get the quarterback to perform the way he needs to perform, okay? So who's going to be the running back next year? Who cares? It'll be somebody. Will you have to draft somebody? Probably. Will you have to get somebody in free agency? Probably. Will you hope that Javonte Williams comes back? Probably. Will Latavius Murray get another shot? I don't know. Unlikely. He got that. That was a fun run. Got it, which was awesome. But you saw how he slowed down about 40 yards into his 52-yard run, right? Where was that extra burst? Where was him able to, plant his foot and go the other direction in there for a touchdown? That just doesn't exist. That's a touchdown for Javonte Williams. He's getting in the end zone. You don't have that out of Latavius Murray. He's been serviceable, but there's nothing special there. So I really don't care about the running back position, Jake. It's about the quarterback position.
Well, I asked because if you look at this free agent running backs class, it is phenomenal. And one of the people in that free agent running backs class is Jamal Williams. And Jamal Williams right now actually has more touchdowns than the entire Denver Broncos offense, as does Travis Kelce, actually. So there's two players in the NFL that have more touchdowns individually than an entire team's offense. But Jamal Williams, I look at as a guy that, hey, maybe if he could take on the load, or one of these other guys could take on the load, does that take off pressure from Russ? And I know it's a dangerous game to start paying running backs, but Broncos have already worked themselves into about as dangerous of a hole as they can with the Russell Wilson trade and contract extension.
All right. I mean, if you want to, exactly, how much money do you want to spend on a running back, Jake? I wouldn't. You spend $8 million a year on Melvin Gordon, right? I mean, what's our limit here? I don't know, Jake. If you can get a good guy between 5 to 7, I'd be fine with that. I really don't care who it is. It doesn't matter. Latavius Murray ran for 56 yards yesterday. I mean, who's Latavius Murray? I mean, he's somebody, he's off the scrap heap, off the practice squad, and he ran for 56 yards. If you get the right blocking, if you get the right offensive line, a lot of guys can do real well. The special guys, well, that's a different category. But the problem with the special guys, Jake, is they just break down. They do. So you kind of got to find those guys in the draft, and I wouldn't kill yourself on that either. Try to pick up the best running back you can if you can swing a 3rd or 4th round pick on him. So I don't, that to me doesn't even matter. I mean, even the best running backs, if you don't have the right blocking, can't do anything. I mean, Derrick Henry can be contained. I mean, the Titans lost yesterday, and he's just about as good as you get. And then you see what the problem the Colts have, because almost after every big running season, Jake, you've used your running back so much. Almost every single time after a huge season, statistically, those running backs go down dramatically. So I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it. I wouldn't spend a lot of capital on it. I would focus on the offensive line. I would draft a starting right tackle, hopefully for the next 7 to 10 years. That's what I would do. And I 1,000% would pick up a quarterback 5th, 6th round, maybe 4th round if you twist my arm. But you've got to get a competitive situation going on behind the scenes. You are stuck with Russell Wilson, but you're not necessarily stuck losing. You can't afford, because you don't have a 1st round pick, so you can't do it. You can't do what you should do.
They do have a 1st round pick, but it's
other thing.
They do have a 1st round pick, but it's not a top 10 pick. It's going to be really late.
Right. It's number 20, and you need a right tackle, and you're committed to Russ. I should back up on that. I don't think you're in a position this year to do it because you're so stuck with Russell Wilson. However, it is an interesting time to take a flyer on a guy in the 4th or 5th round, and then you kind of, maybe you get lucky. It's not a good strategy, so I'm not saying that is the plan, because in the 2023 draft, I would do it. If you don't like that guy, I would do it again in the 2024 draft and the 2025 draft. I mean, you don't have a lot of choices here, Jake, because you can't afford to take a quarterback in the 1st round for like 4 years. So you got to, this is how bad of a deal that George Payton did, that you're stuck in this crazy situation where you got to get so lucky in the future that there's some sort of late blooming quarterback that could possibly help you out. I mean, there are examples of it, Jake. They are just so hard to find, and you'd have to get so lucky. So we're in a world of hurt here, dude. Big time world of hurt. And I don't think it's a dip. I do think it's a decline for Russell Wilson.
He could maybe get into the situation, the 1 in a million situation, where you get Dak Prescott in a late round to Tony Romo and you make that transition. But you're right. It's an outlier. It's not the rule. I do want to look at the NFL mock draft right now. And this will probably bother you, D-Mac, because the Broncos are, I think, at 25, 24, something like that. And they're projected right now to pick Utah's top cornerback, who, of course, will be a really good cornerback, instead of one of these top 5 picks. And you've been on and on about Pat Surtain, but you look at some of these guys and what the Seahawks could do with the Broncos pick, I mean, you're going to get a really, really good player, possibly a generational pass rusher or offensive lineman towards the top of the draft. And, this is a draft also with 2 quarterbacks, one of whom probably looks like a can't miss guy in Bryce Young. CJ Stroud could go either way. Either way, this draft pick you're giving to Seattle is going to end up really hurting Broncos fans.
Jake, can I beg something of you? Can I plead something of you? Can we stow the hyperbole for how awesome midfield passing is during a World Cup match rather than use it so loosely on cornerbacks and linebackers and pass rushers? If you delineate the word generational enough, it will seriously mean absolutely positively nothing. We have got to stop using this word, or we got to come up with a different word. I have gone through this mess with the whole must-win game, okay? I've been fighting that literal definition of must-win for more than 14 years, and I've lost that battle. So every game now is a must-win game. Every game is a rivalry game, and I'm just sticking to elimination games. You can't just throw around the word generational. It's not fair to the players. And I'm not mad at you, Jake. You just did use it. But this is the whole problem with Patrick Surtain, throwing around this word that has no definition. Nobody can define what a generational player literally is. To me, a generational player would be the best player in a generation. And how long is a generation, Jake? I'd say it's at least 10 years. So seriously, will we freaking calm down? Do we know Patrick Surtain is going to be better than Jalen Ramsey or Patrick Peterson? And why put that on one player? Is he as good as Darrell Green? Really? Do you think he's in the same conversation as Champ Bailey or Deion Sanders? I mean, will everybody just calm down with the word generational? How about really good? How about excellent starter? How about Pro Bowl caliber player? That's all you really need. And it's people are acting like I'm against Patrick Surtain. I'm not. I didn't hang the whole generational thing on him. I like him. He's a really, really good young player, susceptible to mistakes, as a lot of young players are. To say generational is just dumb, okay? And it was Mike Evans that came up with the Hall of Fame 5 for the 2018 draft class, not me. I don't need a generational quarterback. I need a good, solid starting quarterback who's capable year after year of getting you to the playoffs with a possibility of winning a Super Bowl. That's it. That's it, Jake. And unless you have that quarterback, you got nothing. So if the Broncos want to draft a cornerback in the 20s, I mean, you might have to because you're done with Darby and you got nothing else. I mean, I would be aghast if you don't take a right tackle in this particular draft. I don't need a generational right tackle. I just need a solid starter. Jake, we have gone through 11 different starting right tackles in 11 straight years. I mean, is this not beyond obvious what they need to do? And hopefully Garrett Bowles comes back healthy. Garrett Bowles is not generational, but he's really good, and that's good enough. Jake, well, what is wrong with Generation Z and the need to make a bigger deal about everything? Get off my lawn.
I would be lying if I said I wasn't trying to bait you with the generational usage and also the talking about the cornerback that's projected to go to the mock draft to the Broncos. But yeah, Pat Surtain had a really bad day yesterday, second in a row. I think that a generational player, at least in my mind, if you want to define it, Nikola Jokic is a generational center.
Exactly.
He's not even a generational basketball player because Kevin Durant and LeBron James are at that level, and Jokic hasn't accomplished enough. Giannis is maybe bordering on that level, but we're talking about you have to be the best player in your sport for multiple years.
Yes. You have to borderline redefine what the position is to be generational. Jokic is, though. He is.
Right. And you know, if you want to take it to football, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, we're talking about legends of the game. Legends. So multiple MVPs, Super Bowl champions. Like, I don't think you need to win a Super Bowl to be a good or successful quarterback, but you do need to win a Super Bowl to define your legacy. So if you want to talk about being a generational player, see, I don't know. See, Jokic, I don't think has to lead his team to a championship necessarily because of what he's done.
but he does have the potential to do so. And that's probably good enough. God, could he be a generational player without winning an NBA championship?
Shohei Ohtani is a generational player already, and he may never win a championship. So I think it's very hard in team sports to define.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Ichiro Suzuki was a generational player for what he did at his size and the length of time he did it. I mean, we when we talk about generational players or potential to be generated, I don't even know what a generational cornerback would do. I mean, you're the 5th most important position on your team. You control nothing. Somebody has to throw the ball to you to make any kind of impact whatsoever. And somehow you get kudos if you make a tackle and you don't even tackle anybody. You just sort of roll over and throw your head and your shoulders at somebody's knees. Nobody wraps up. Nobody really tackles. Generational player. I mean, we have seen back-to-back weeks with Brian Burns and Max Crosby having significant impacts on a football game as a defensive player. We haven't seen one game where Patrick Surtain has made the difference in a game. I mean, he's knocked down a couple of passes. I mean, awesome. He's also got burned a few times. Or in the Tennessee game, Jake, they threw at him twice and they won. What can he do? If he wanted to be generational, if they want him to be generational, Jake, guess what they would do? They would have him return punts so he could impact the game. That would be Patrick Peterson. That would be Deion Sanders. Those are the guys that are in that sort of conversation.
Well, another thing for Pat Surtain that may happen next week is he may be taken out of the game a little bit against Baltimore because they're a heavy running team. They do not pass the ball so much. And you look at what the opening line is for that game out in Baltimore, it's another probable Broncos loss as we were expected. But not only that, the Broncos are the 2nd biggest underdogs heading into next week, except for, Dallas, Indianapolis. That game's going to maybe go haywire. The over-under, I think, on this game is 38 as well, D-Max. So we're expecting another low-scoring game with the Broncos not favorited. And I want to look at the upcoming schedule as well. You look at the upcoming schedule. Is there even a win on this schedule? Or are we going to see the Broncos maybe favored or underdogs by more than 7 points, a touchdown in every single one of these games?
Yeah, the Broncos aren't CU. In college football, unfortunately, you can just get so overmatched in talent that, I mean, it literally is impossible. I mean, there was zero chance for CU to beat Utah. Zero. The NFL is different because of the salary cap and just the way they do everything, Jake, and revenue sharing. It means there's, even though some teams have more talent than others, there's enough talent that games are always competitive. So would I be surprised if they won a game or two? No, I would not, because you can always win games by the any given Sunday stratagem. Okay. That can always happen. It happened this weekend. The Jaguars won against the Ravens that exact same way. And by the way, we are definitely seeing an approach about going for 2 rather than going for the tie and taking your chances in overtime. And I bet the analytics do prove that out. That in terms of winning a game, I'll bet you anything, these coaches know the odds are just so much higher going for one play rather than take the chances in overtime. So I'm going to guess that's why we saw Staley do it and we saw the Jags do it. I like that. I like that a lot. Could have gone backwards. But you do see that every week, Jake. So no, I would not be surprised if professional football players at some point can actually win a professional football game. They're not going to be favored, though. Nobody's going to expect it. Nobody's going to bet on them, unless the spread is so ridiculous and you're betting against the spread. I see the game, the Broncos had the ball for 14 minutes less than 14 minutes less than their opponent yesterday. 14, almost a full. Look at that. I mean, and this is the Panthers, dude. This is the team with Sam Darnold as the quarterback. But what's the secret sauce? The Broncos are weak on the edge because they got rid of Bradley Chubb. They got nothing over there. And unless you want to just not have Draymond Jones do anything, you take away his presence by sticking him outside. I mean, you'll contain the edge better, but you'll get less of a pass rush. So, they're just going to, what were the runs to passes yesterday for the Panthers? Wasn't it like 48-19?
I think it was 46-19. I think it's 46-19.
46-19. What do you think? You're going to see the same exact thing from every team the Broncos play, Jake. And so the final score may not be 50-3 because you're not throwing the ball enough, but that was an ass kicking yesterday, okay? You got throttled way more than the score indicates because they gave up a garbage touchdown as they went into a soft zone, and they let the Broncos have like 50 cracks at the end zone to finally get one in. So that's the only thing that made it look, even somewhat respectable, Jake. And then, the Broncos got lucky on an onside kick. So, there was this kind of weird, like, oh, maybe this game wasn't so bad. Hey, it was. It was that bad. It was worse than it looked. And the Ravens are just going to jackhammer the Broncos into submission running the ball. And unless you can turn around and control the clock and you can run the ball against them, you're in big trouble. And the defense of the Ravens is not great, but it's better. And their offense is much better than the Panthers. Never mind the Chiefs. And even the Cardinals. The Rams are a mess, man. But the Chargers will put it on the Broncos, as will the Chiefs at home, too. So, listen, man, you may be right, man. There may not be another win on this schedule. But there is the any given Sunday. That does not exist in college football. So I won't be surprised, but I'm certainly not expecting it.
Yeah, you look at the Broncos right now, and they are 2 weeks in a row have lost as the favorite. And I think that there's a chance that they still pull away in that Rams game because the Rams are in a really rough spot, but I'm not expecting them to open up as the favorite in that game in LA. But that is the place on the schedule that I see and say, hey, maybe they can win that one on Christmas Day. I do want to flip gears, though, get away a little bit from the Broncos. One of my favorite parts about yesterday in the NFL was the Commanders game. Not because of what happened in the game, but because of what happened after the game. You have Brian Robinson, the running back, promoting one of his friend's companies, which is
Big hat.
Big hats. Just a really, really big hat.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's amazing. It might be the weirdest thing I've seen worn in a locker room, D-Mac. What's the weirdest thing you've seen worn in a locker room?
Well, it's not what I've seen worn. It's what I've seen not worn. And that's when I covered the Buffalo Bills. And Cornelius Bennett had no shame. And it wasn't what he was wearing. It's his mode of undress that caught everybody's attention week after week. Jake, let me just tell you this. He was a proud man. And that's unfortunately what I saw repeatedly. And it wasn't just me. It was everybody. And the fact that he had a corner locker right in the middle was interesting. So, in terms of what guys wear, the only interesting clothes story that I have is that Peyton Manning used to wear a different suit to every game, a different suit every home game. The only time I ever recall Peyton Manning not wearing a suit was against the Chargers in 2015 because he had agreed to be a backup. He had to come to terms with, even though I'm healthy, I am being benched for the betterment of the team, and I'm willing to be a good teammate and go out and be a backup. He did not wear a suit that day, Jake, because he did not anticipate speaking to the media afterwards. The backup quarterback does not speak on the podium to the media. And, third quarter, Peyton goes in and kind of the rest is history. So that's the only quirky clothes story that I got for you. That was the one post game. Go back and look at it. Peyton Manning was not wearing a suit. And it just goes to show you what a wild up and down year that was and how Disney-esque that story was for Peyton Manning and the Broncos.
Yeah, all I've got from the locker rooms is in 2017 when the Rockies started getting good, they started turning memes that they were seeing on Twitter into shirts, led by Tony Walters. So I was getting pictures with the guys wearing the different shirts they were wearing with memes like tacos with the apostrophe and stuff. So that was a fun little play that they were showing they cared about the fans, that there was a back and forth and whatnot. But yeah, I always found it amazing in baseball that the guys have the ability to just create t-shirts on the mark. And all of a sudden, like if a guy fell at first base, you walk into the locker room after the game and everyone's wearing a picture of the guy falling on first base. So I always love that. But shout out to Brian Robinson because the big hat is hilarious. It's the big salad, D-Mac. It's the big salad, but the big hat from Seinfeld.
Yeah, so that is going to be the least popular guy at the movie theater.
That's the worst place to wear that for sure. Or in class, if you're in college and you're wearing the big hat. The Avalanche had a weird situation over the weekend, DMAC. They did play one of their games, and they're still in a good spot in the standings. They're 3 games at hand, and I think 3 points back of the top spot in Dallas.
Yeah.
What happened this weekend that cost the Avalanche one of those games at hand?
Are you quizzing me?
Well, no, I was asking you. I can say it, but I mean, I was just trying
Are
to.
you talking about Wednesday's game with Cale McCarron occupying space, or?
Well, I was talking about the water main break. I was trying to create.
Yeah. There was a rain out. Yeah, Nashville had a rain out. Listen, I enjoyed my time in Nashville watching the Avalanche sweep the Predators last spring. That building, Jake, leaves a lot to be desired. It's an older barn. I think it was built in like 96. And it's in a great location. But was I surprised there was some sort of like mechanical failure tied into the infrastructure in Nashville? No. I mean, that place is a 24-hour party. There may be some crumbly bridges and bad water mains. And like a lot of southern places, you get like an inch of rain and it stops the city. I mean, you get a little bit of a freeze and everybody freaks out. I mean, I was at the worst Super Bowl of all time in Dallas, where it was just frozen out for the entire week. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't great. We would handle it just fine here in Denver. But I mean, that thing was nuts. I mean, that thing shut down the city. And we know Texas has had other, ice issues, obviously. And so Nashville had a problem with the bad pipe. I talked to some of the people that are covering the Avalanche. It's pretty funny. There's nothing you could do. I mean, the game was canceled. They have a private jet. So they got there. The game's canceled. They just load the jet and take off and come back. So it was an odd one. See, this is the problem. Like, if that game gets made up, it should get made up in Colorado, in my opinion. I think you lose you can even make the argument the Avs should just get 2 points, but perhaps that's unfair to everybody else. I think the game probably will have to be made up because I think there'll be some sort of points issue with playoff seeding. I really do think it should be made up in Colorado. It wasn't the Avs' fault. They did everything it took to get there. I think you should lose the right to that home game. You?
I think that you should keep that right unless it's actually during play and your stadium malfunctions. If it's before the game, I think that's a right because, it's probably nothing that was actually within the Predators' control. It could have been something from the city. It could have been a myriad of things. I actually remember, DMAC, Todd Helton's jersey retirement game got rained out by a water main break outside of Coors Field. So this has happened before. I think this has actually happened to the Predators before. What I find funny is in hockey is like you couldn't just freeze the team store and let the guys play a hockey game on the frozen water in the team store.
Yeah, that's actually interesting, Jake. I mean, you could have had the game and just not had any people there. It's not like we didn't have an entire season of that. There was no damage inside of the playing surface. All right, hey, morons, you blew it. You don't get to have fans here, but you actually still could have had the game. And then I was thinking, like, isn't there another rink somewhere? Like, we can't go anywhere else in Nashville. There's like nowhere. I mean, if that happened in Colorado, you could go to the Budweiser Event Center if you wanted to, where the Eagles play. I mean, you could have skated at Magnus Arena, where DU plays. Like, there's actually you could have gone to the World Arena and played on an Olympics sheet down there. I mean, there literally are probably a dozen alternatives of where you could have played for the Avalanche if that happened. But in Nashville, there's no.
So I know there's certain stipulations the NHL has, and this came out with the arena in Arizona with ASU and the Coyotes. So ASU built that arena, I think, for the scoreboard to be 30 feet off the ice surface, but they had to renovate it already because in the NHL, your scoreboard has to be at least 40 feet off the ice surface. So they actually have to move the scoreboard higher for Coyotes games. So there's all sorts of weird little stipulations like that I'm sure make an NHL barn an NHL barn. I wonder if they could have actually played that game in Nashville, but the problem was, hey, guys can't drink water. Like, we're going to have problems with like getting water and stuff like that. So that's what I'm curious about, but I'm with you. If it doesn't impact the actual playing surface, too bad, so sad. You've lost your opportunity to host fans. We're having this game. I don't think that revenue is really going to affect the bottom line of the team or the sport for an entire season. You still have the TV contracts. So, but getting away from the Nashville thing, where do you see the Avs in the standings? Do you like where they're still at? They lost a tough game, I think, last Wednesday night, right after we got off coffee break. So, but they've only played twice since we last talked.
Well, they lost a really weird one on Wednesday, and they decided to go with Francouz, not Georgiev, even though there was a back-to-back situation on Friday and Saturday. Now, they didn't play that Friday game, but what was the plan? Were you going to play Georgiev on Friday in Nashville and Saturday? I mean, he did play back-to-back games in Finland. Or were you really looking to play Frankie 2 out of 3 times? And if so, why? That was a little weird to me. The game was odd because Cale Makar now multiple times has been called for interference, basically throwing a pick at the blue line on the power play. And this is a very odd rule. Like, if you're just standing there, you should be allowed, as they say in the NHL, to occupy space. But the referee said you stuck your ass out. That's what Makar said. He said, the guy told me, and he said ass several times, so I hope I'm not offending anybody. I'm just being journalistic here. And this has happened to Makar several times. Well, that eliminated the power play. And this is only called when teams are up, by the way. This is never called at even strength. It's only called when the team's on the power play. And then it went 4-on-4, and they scored what it turned out to be the game-winning goal, like seconds later, 4-on-4. And Makar was ticked off, and he spoke about it at length. It's the most energy I've seen Cale Makar give to, frankly, anything. He's a relatively soft-spoken guy. But, I mean, he went off after the game, and Bednar had a hard time explaining it. So you do lose a bit of a stinker there in front of an incredible crowd the day before Thanksgiving. But look what they do, Jake. You've got Dallas, which is arguably the next best team in the West, maybe, and you just school them. And now you beat Dallas twice in a row, and they owned Dallas, and Georgiev was fantastic, and they got contributions from the bottom 6. So when you're getting something from Couch and who else? Hunt, and these guys, it's basically the Eagles are out there on the ice, and you're using these guys and winning. Oh, Jake, I mean, and the Avs did lose out on a couple games because of the Finland trip, so they've got games in hand. Okay, awesome. I think the Avs are doing way better during this massive injury time than I anticipated, and I don't really see that slowing down because I do think the goaltending is, with Georgiev, it is better than Darcy.
They're 3 out with 3 games at hand, and we actually just got some Avs breaking news. Okay. They've signed Alex Galchenyuk to a 1-year deal. Okay. Galchenyuk was with them in training camp. He's a former, I believe, all-star. If not, he was a borderline all-star. He was a really nice player for Montreal for years, former top draft pick, former 20-goal scorer multiple times. D-Mac, you saw him at training camp when he joined the Avs before he was injured. He got injured at training camp. What can Galchenyuk add to this team? Well, they're trying to replace Rodriguez, obviously, who, thank God, it does not appear he's got like a torn ACL, but he is going to be out for 2 to 4 weeks. So I assume that's what they're trying to replace is his sort of production. So what do you get for him? Well, I mean, I hope you get for him what you're getting out of Evan Rodriguez. I don't think Evan Rodriguez is going to be a star or that special, but he was solid. I mean, he was on the first power play. So hopefully that's what you get out of it. They're still, they're trying some things. They moved JT Compher up to 2C, and they put him on the first power play too. Newhook continues to be, a bit of an adventure. They have not given up on him, and they're closer to getting Bo Byram back. They got Gerard back, and even Helm is on the ice. So, Jake, they're slowly getting better. So, I mean, what do you hope to get from the same production you got from Evan Rodriguez, which was solid, not spectacular? Yeah, and one of the things that Jared Bednar told me, at least at the top of the season, was the Newhook experience is going to be months long, and we're going to give him every opportunity, and we're going to play it out. And I think that's part of what. Hey, man, don't be surprised at the trade deadline if Alex Newhook is toast. Exactly. I think that's what they're doing is They want to make sure that they are absolutely sure that he is not the guy before they go and make that move. But I think we all see that move coming eventually. And I think we're all excited for the Avs to get healthy, which hopefully will happen soon enough, maybe after Christmas. Go ahead.
I do have to point something out on Saturday night. Josh Manson had one of the quirkiest games of all time. He had a goal, just start there, defenseman Josh Manson goal. He had an assist. He had 3 minors called on him during the second period. He had a non-call, which was fascinating because a stick got, Marchman, I think, Marchman lifted his stick, but underneath of Manson's stick, he smashed Manson with his own stick in his face, and Manson goes down, and the refs stopped play because they thought, what happened here? But because it wasn't Marchman's stick that hit Manson's face, they didn't call a penalty, and because there was no blood, they couldn't call a double minor or a major. So, but they had to explain why they blew the whistle. So it was actually kind of an inadvertent whistle. So the explanation was absolutely hysterical. They said, because there was no injury, there's no penalty on the play, which is hysterical to hear that way. And I asked Bednar about it. And he goes, well, the reason they didn't call it was the reasons I just explained, which is fine. He had just never heard it put that way. So I asked Manson in the locker room afterwards, I go, well, wouldn't it have been better if they said no blood, no penalty? And he goes, yeah, I would have preferred that. You don't want to be considered a bleeder. I mean, but listen, Jake, how sick would that have sounded? Because that's literally what happened. Instead of injury, what if the referee, which would have been amazing, said no blood, no penalty, play on? It would have been the most hockey of all hockey things to ever say. And we were this close from actually hearing it. And it was the literal reason why the penalty wasn't called, because there was no blood. The literal interpretation was no blood, no penalty, play on. Hockey.
Hockey's the only sport where you're rooting for your own players to start bleeding because you get 2 more minutes on the power play. It's an incredible quirk of hockey, and I'm sure Josh did his dad Dave proud by taking 3 penalties in the same game and getting 2 points.
It's not the same game. It's the same period. I mean, I'm sure there's been plenty of guys that have had 3 minors in the same game. But so Brendan McNicholas, the PR guy for the Avs, was sitting right next to me and Manson, and I go, has that ever happened to you? And Manson goes, no, I've never had that happen. And he goes, it's got to be some sort of record. And both of us just look at Brendan, and Brendan was like, I'll look it up, because I don't even know how he's going to do that, though. I don't even know how you would figure that out. But I've never seen it. It had never happened to Manson. And Brendan McNicholas, who has seen 10,000 hockey games, couldn't recall it either. So what an unusual night for Josh Manson. He got the 2nd star. I was like, come on, man. You got to give him a first star.
Again, I'd be shocked.
3 minors, smashing himself in the face. No blood, no penalty. I mean, that was an awesome night for Josh Manson.
I think, again, the only player that could relate to that is his father, Dave, who probably has been in a similar situation over his NHL career. Anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of Coffee Break. He is DMAC. I am Jake Shapiro. Catch him today from 2 to 6 p.m. on 104.3 The Fan.
Hey, Jake, Utah just scored again.
Wow. Hey, prime time's coming to Boulder, right? Maybe.
Oh, let's go! Let's go!
I talked to some boosters, DMAC, on this weekend.
Oh wait, let me guess. They're not into it. Yeah, they're down on it for some reason. God forbid we get some attention.
One booster told me it's done.
Oh,
another booster told me that to wait up. So we'll see. I'm not. Okay. I'll put it this way. I'm not ready to report anything, but I went from before the weekend thinking that Deion Sanders was not going to be the head coach of CU to now after the weekend. I think I'm over the line, and I'd say it's probable that he's the head coach of CU come next week. So we'll see.
Wow.
I think a lot can happen because, and here's a little CU thing. When they hired Mel Tucker, they actually had the contract to Ryan Day, who is now the head coach at Ohio State, almost signed. And Ryan Day goes back to Ohio State. The boosters at Ohio State ran Urban Meyer out and said, we got to get Ryan Day. We got to keep Ryan Day. We're not letting him leave. So a lot of things can happen in these 11th hour negotiations, but I think right now it's trending towards Deion Sanders being.
So really quick, are you okay if he's just here for 2 years?
Yeah, if you can win a couple games, bring in some recruits, it's going to be a lot better than what it is
because
now.
I assume his son, who's a sophomore, will transfer from Jackson to CU. I don't think people are talking enough about that too. I mean, that's the way Deion's going to get his son as a quarterback against a major college, but he's only there for 2 years. So I see it as a 2-year deal, and I think it's going to be hard to recruit quarterbacks. I'm not against it, but just to keep it real, I don't think it helps CU recruit. Not really. It'll bring a lot of attention to them, but he certainly is just going to take his son and make him the starting quarterback, right?
Well, you got a 5-star guy at Jackson State right now who could transfer. You've got a couple guys at Jackson State who are high recruits that could transfer.
Okay.
You could maybe get a guy or two who are 4 or 5-star guys coming in next year or the next 2 years who want to work with Under Armour and Deion Sanders, where all that money is coming from. Again, there's a little quirk in this. Colorado's a Nike school. So what's going to happen there? That's the biggest issue I see overcoming this is Colorado's a Nike school and Deion Sanders is a huge Under Armour guy. So
that's actually a little bit significant.
Yeah.
So could you just dump Nike if you're CU?
Well, CU is actually a rare Nike test school because of the running program.
Yeah.
So CU has special privileges with Nike, and they've had a long-standing relationship. So
could you get an exemption just for football?
Maybe Nike says we don't want to be associated with this football program anymore.
Yeah.
But
I mean, how much could that contract really seriously be? I wouldn't be. Listen, I hope that doesn't stop the potential deal. It would be awful exciting for CU, and even if it is only for a couple of years, sign me up. It would get me to go to CU games for sure, and it would draw so much positive attention towards the Buffs. I mean, let's go. It'd be fun. It'd be a fun couple of years.
I'm all aboard it. I'm not going to lie and think that, CU is above a stepping stone job at this point. They're not. Yeah. So let's do it. He's D-Mac. I'm Jake Shapiro. Thank you for tuning into Coffee Break. We will talk to you 10:30 a.m. tomorrow, 2 to 6 p.m. on The Drive, 104.3 The Fan. D-Mac.